Bonjour et bienvenue à le podcast de Fantasy. Je suis le co-présenteur Stevie Collier et je suis avec mon autre co-présenteur Andy Pellegrin et aujourd'hui nous avons le magnifique Joshua Robertson. Okay. Hello.
You totally should have said my name Pelocan, with the French accent, because that would have totally completed it.
I was going to say Pelican but I was like, well, I don't know if I don't know if the French would take it and actually say it the American way or not. But anyway, hello and welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast. That was my best attempt at doing this intro in French. I'm your co-host, Stevie Collier, and I am here with the award-winning author, Andy Pellegrin. And today on the air, we have Joshua Robertson, who we played Dungeons & Dragons with a few weeks ago. And he is the author of the Blood of Dragons series. The what?
Thrice 9 Legends. That's the term that encompasses all your books, right, Josh?
Yeah, my main saga is Thrice 9 Legends. That's the easiest way of doing it. It's the Thrice 9 Legends saga and then the Legacy series.
Oh, okay. So what is the Blood of Dragons then?
So the Blood of Dragons is a series within the Thrice 9 Legends saga. The best way that I explain this is my books are like Dragonlance. I have an overarching saga, and then there's little series and standalone novels and everything else that are within that same world.
That's a really good idea from a marketing position, because then you can your books have a wide net, and they can catch a lot of readers, and they can just go to each of your books.
You think so, Stevie, but it confuses the hell out of a lot of people. I got to explain it all the time.
I mean, it made sense to me once you explained it, but I mean, I love it. I think Chris Fox does something similar. And me, I have the 4 territories out on pre-order now. That's my plug. It's out on pre-order now. And now I'm almost done with my Lit RPG, and they're completely separate, so... And Lit RPG is so different. They have the sci-fi and the fantasy version of it. I highly doubt half of my email list will go and pick it up, because you have to play World of Warcraft and stuff like that to understand most of it. Or to respect it, I guess you should say, to respect it. But yeah, and you just showed your, oh, never mind, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that about your second book.
You can, yeah.
Okay.
Folks that are subscribed to my newsletter have just seen the low-res cover for the second book in the Blood of Dragons. But nobody else has seen that anywhere, so you've only seen it if you're subscribed to my newsletter.
So what we're saying is go subscribe to this man's email list, and then...
Yeah,
Do this
I'm pretty excited.
Get into your TARDIS, travel back in time, and subscribe.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love to reward them with all sorts of snippets and rewards and stuff. They got to see the first touch of an unedited version in the second novel as well. So they got to read through about 800 words of that today too.
That's awesome.
That's a really cool perk. I love getting these little ideas to the thing is, I mess with my email list too much. Like, I feel like I email them way too much. There's those authors who do, bi-monthly, monthly, and I'm like every 3 days. No. It's not that bad, but I always feel like I'm bothering people, email marketing to me is the hardest. I'm more of a salesman verbally. That's what I did best in school with. Okay, I'm going to toot my horn a little bit, but when I was in all my marketing classes, everybody wanted to be grouped up with me whenever we had to present. And that's just because I didn't mind getting up and talking and hard selling. But email marketing to me it's been a hard thing for me to learn, that and writing good sales copy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will say that I stole about half of the things that I use in my newsletter from Joshua. So if you enjoy my newsletter, just go read his, and it's like him saying things in the same way that I've been saying things.
You just replace your name or his name with yours.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of times I even forgot to put my book names in place of his after copying and pasting the text.
That's funny. I'm seriously going to go subscribe to your email list now, Joshua.
I'll be honest, email marketing is hard, though. I mean, you're absolutely right. And I get the same trouble because I actually email my folks. I was doing it weekly. Now I'm doing it 3 times a month. But I do a reader survey every 6 months where I poll the readers to get my email and see how often they want to get it and what material they like and what they don't like, so I can change it up about every 6 months. And most of them are like, yeah, give us more and more and more. But there's always like 10% who are like, you're sending us way too many emails. Stop sending us emails. And I'm like, well, majority rules, guys. I'm sorry. Like, and so they end up unsubscribing a lot of the times. You can put them on separate lists and do that, but that's just a lot of work.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I actually am one of those crazy ones. You know, I'm a big fan of segmentation, but you know, we were talking about my frustrations before this podcast started, you know, with my other things. Well, that part, you're completely right. It sucks. It sucks so hard. It is an absolute pain. And I'm the kind, Andy knows this, but I've listened and read to about, I would say 85 to 90% of self-publishing books out there on the marketing side. And each one tells you, don't do everything that's in this book. You will drive yourself crazy. Well, can you guess where I'm at? I'm doing everything, and I'm seriously going crazy. Everything besides blogging, I do. So, which brings me up to a question I want to ask for your readers and your fans.
Yeah.
Before we started this podcast, you were telling us, Andy already knew, I had no idea, but I'm a fan of the fantasyfaction.com, and I wanted to ask you, you do work for them. When did that start, and how did it start?
For Fantasy Faction?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you broke up there just for a second on my end.
Sorry.
No problem. I actually had seen an advertisement, oh man, what was it, back in February or March, where they were looking for contributors for their website. And I put together a packet of information with some samples of things that I've written in the past, because I had some things published in our Right Side journal, as well as a yearly plan of things that I would publish for them over the next year. Submitted all that information into them, and they really liked what I had to offer and brought me on board as a contributor. So I've been writing with them now about 5 or 6 months now that I've been writing for them. My last article that went up was on September 22nd for Hobbit Day. I did J.R. Tolkien's All That Glitters. Oh, help me out here, Andy. His poem of Not All That Glitters is Gold. And I kind of broke down the poem and talked about what some of those lines meant and the history behind that and how that contributed to the novel. So they really look for anything that has to do with just what's new in fantasy, what's upcoming in fantasy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's how I got started doing that. And I've made some wonderful connections in there. Mark Lawrence and Scott Oden. I've recently been talking to Salvatore for about the past 4 months now, back and forth through emails. I'm working on getting an interview up for him. And he's a great guy too. It's a wonderful opportunity. I'm very blessed to be there.
I've actually read a couple of your articles, so and I was impressed by them. So I was like, yes, I've got to join the ranks.
Thank you, Eddie. I'll tell you how. Sorry, Steve. That's so stressful, though. Like putting an article up there that's being seen by so many people. It's like that feeling of, is this going to make or break me in terms of a career for what I put up? Because I put up a couple of controversial ones, even about like the publishing industry and how many people are publishing that probably shouldn't be. And I got a lot of heat for that. But Fantasy Faction themselves were very excited about it. They said that's the most interaction they've had on an article in over a year. People were all drawn to it. I even had one article that was picked up and published in independent publishing magazine out of Sweden because they liked it so much about book covers. So it's been wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Dude, that's thug.
No, Steve. That's
That's why the Four Territories is plummeting, because every page has the word thug in it.
Yeah.
Actually, you brought up a good point about Tolkien Day or Hobbit Day, the 26th. I have a really cool story. I came home that day, and true story, I swear to God.
Found a Hobbit in your girlfriend's bed.
Wow.
Tell me that happened. I got that right?
This every podcast has to have something sexual with you, Andy. Or at least I took it that way. Either way, I'd be more thrilled than unhappy, I think. I would lock him in my closet and show people. Anyway, my cat, or my girlfriend's cat, had knocked over my Hobbit book, not lying, onto the ground and hairballed on it.
Oh my goodness.
And it's a book I haven't touched in a year or so, and it just picked that one out and threw up on it on Hobbit Day. That's ironic, and I really feel like I've brought value to this podcast now with that story.
This has been Story Time with Stevie. Tune in next week to hear.
The title would be "Cat Hates Tolkien" or something. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of what type of omen that is. That's I wouldn't think I'd leave my house for the rest of the day after that. I would lock myself in the room.
Right. It's so ironic that it's scary. It's like an omen. It's like there is some being in my apartment watching out, or not watching out for me.
Watching
but anyway, yeah, haunting me for sure. Man, that's really cool. I didn't know that I was so close to somebody who worked for the fantasyfaction.com.
Oh, well, thank you.
And go ahead.
I don't find myself that special in doing it. I just have a lot of fun doing it. It's been wonderful. So,
and Andy, you would be perfect for it too, because that's what you do all day.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
So I agree. Andy actually has a lot of articles floating out there on the internet that I've been picking up, and that definitely belongs over there with Fantasy Faction.
Sweet. I would have a fun time getting into sort of the psychology of the villains and the things like that.
I just listened to a podcast with you in it, Andy, and you brought that up, man. I was like, there he goes with those damn villains again. This man, I wonder if he's just like low-key serial killer or some shit. Or, oops,
I love it. You know, I'm leading a panel at the Indie Scribe Convention in October, and I suggested the panel, and as of right now, I'm the only author doing it. Like, none of the other authors there had signed up for the panel, but it's going to be so much fun because I was like starting making a list of all the different types of villains, and then of course the different types of antagonists, and like breaking them down. And it's going to be so much fun for me.
Yeah, I think I'd like to write an anti-hero book one day, kind of like what you did. So we're gonna have to talk about that. We're like ignoring Joshua.
No, you're good.
Like, this is just, you can go ahead and leave now. We're talking anti-heroes.
Actually, Josh's books are all pretty much anti-heroes.
They are.
You know,
the one I'm actually preparing for the box set we're doing, the Ragged Heroes box set, which Andy is involved in as well. That's probably gonna be my darkest anti-hero story yet. I'm super excited about it.
Awesome.
I'm looking at your book cover, Anarfel. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are.
Anarfel. Are those both, like, the two guys on the cover, are they anti-heroes?
They are both well, they're almost more bad guys than anti-heroes, but they are the main characters. It's written from the perspective of the bad guys.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love the book cover.
It just received the bronze reward in the International Book Rewards from Reader's Favorites and Teen Fantasy this year, just this last month, and we're heading down to Miami to go celebrate that. Are you coming down to that, Andy? I know you won an award too.
I wanted to go, but this year I couldn't swing it. Yeah, I was silver for I think Action and Adventure for Child of the Night Guild, and then I think I was bronze also for Lament of the Fallen. I don't remember that one.
Very awesome. Yeah, JC and I are both going down, so it's gonna be wonderful.
What is this again?
It's the International Book Awards for Reader's Favorite, and Anarfel won the bronze medal in the the teen epic fantasy.
Dude, congratulations, Andy! Congratulations. It's like you should be talking about this stuff at the beginning of the podcast to plug yourself in. You know, I just feel like this cheap marketing guy. Like, when we start every podcast, I'm like, oh, this is what's going on with the Four Territories. Oh, this is what I've been doing, and he's like, I'm just great. I'm the Andy Peliquin.
You've got to put the book out, then you got to submit it to these things, and you got to wait for it, and then a year or so down the line, you start getting all of that. But
yeah, I just need to stop worrying so much about the marketing and actually start doing the writing. I'm like the complete opposite of every other author out there. I just market too much.
I don't know if that's actually true. I tell people all the time, once you finish the first book, your next thing to do is write the second book. I mean, the first book, you get it done. It's going to have a 30 to 90 day, shelf period of life before it kind of dies out and dwindles down. And you need to be having your next book going and writing that one too. I mean, you can only market it so much, and you got to get that next one done.
That's very true. And the only thing is I would know to do is every 6 months to a year, you pop it back up with promos and see if you can make it stick a little bit. I guess you could say higher or lower that time. How fast of a writer are you?
That depends on my motivation. This summer was really bad because all the kids were home from school, and so it was I was supposed to get lots of writing done this summer, and I was not very successful in that. But typically, I can write a book in about 22 to 27 days.
That's not bad.
It's usually somewhere between 3,000 to 4,000 words a day.
Whoa!
And I knocked the book out in about 22 to 27 days, and I sent it off for editing for a month or so, and then from there on, I start the marketing plan with it.
Dang, man.
That is amazing.
Are you a stay-at-home dad for that then?
Yeah, I work full time from home. This is all I do. Yep.
And
yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. Like I have a full-time job, so man, I'm just happy to get my measly 1,500 words out.
No, I hear you completely. I mean, Andy knows a little bit about my history, but I'm a master level social worker. Got minors in psychology and sociology. Worked in social work and child welfare for about 15 years. I'm still licensed, actually. And I wrote and worked constantly. I'd work almost 60 hours a week, and I'd come home every day after work, and I'd stay up till almost 1 a.m, write about 2,500 to 3,000 words every night, sleep about 4 hours a night. And I did that just constantly until I got my books out and got them moving along. And it was just last summer that I was finally able to step back because the books were doing well enough. I no longer had to work in child welfare anymore or as a social worker. But it's there on the back burner for when things start taking that downslope that I can jump back into it again. But I'm enjoying the writing life right now, which I think I'm going to be talking about this later tonight over on The Writer's Edge with Christy Stratus. But right now I'm writing about 4 books at the same time, which I've never done before. It's actually a little mind-boggling, but I have 2 books, 2 full-length novels that are halfway done, 1 short story that I just finished up, and another one that I'm working on for Andy that's going to be done by December 1st. So it's going to be back-to-back releases here in a few months.
I think you're gonna get the story done before me. I hope to start working on it before December, but I'm not sure I'll be able to.
Should we go ahead and transition to our topic of the day?
I would love that.
Yes, this is actually one that I'm really looking forward to. Joshua, do you have like a succinct summation of the 12 irrational beliefs, or is it a little bit longer?
Oh,
it's not necessarily.
We were talking hobbit porn.
Talking what?
Hobbit porn? I mean, that's the PDF I got from Andy.
Well, that's your dumbed down version of the 12 irrational beliefs.
Yeah. I actually
that's the 13th irrational belief.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I have them broken down. I can definitely go through them fairly quickly in talking about them. Then we can look at some more a little bit closer. But the 12 irrational beliefs for viewers that aren't familiar with them, they were created by Albert Ellis, who was a wonderful psychologist who put these together to kind of look at what negative thinking did to us as human beings and how it steered us away from being happy. And so he looked at these irrational beliefs and what is typically seen through many humans in terms of what leads them down the dark path. And then he provided the more positive outlook of what we should be thinking instead. I used to teach this in couples classes. I taught it in anger management classes, which I trained in for 3 or 4 years. And I also worked with it in individual, family, and group therapy sessions. So it's extremely versatile in the way that you can use it. But the 12 irrational beliefs themselves for me have been a huge changing point in my own life. These hung up next to my desk for 2 years during college, where I would review them every morning, and I would pick one every week where I would essentially focus on changing my thought patterns around that specific belief so I could think more positively and see the world through a different outlook, which was mind-blowing for me.
Those were your affirmations, your daily affirmations, kind of, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually do some similar stuff, actually. One is religious, so I won't talk about that on air. I go through, I love the law of attraction, big fan of it. I don't follow it like crazy. Oh, awesome. But every morning I try and say 10 things that I am happy to have. And I actually try and feel that emotion. And it kind of reminded me of what you were doing, a little bit different, but I'm glad there's other people out there who do similar stuff. And because I feel kind of weird sometimes laying in my bed. I'm like, I'm thankful for my car. I'm thankful for my computer. I'm thankful for Andy.
That's not weird at all. It's actually very healthy to do stuff like that. I mean, we found through research that about 60% of our thinking is actually biological. So in terms of positive thoughts or negative thoughts, it's passed down through our genetics in the way that we perceive the world and the way that we think. And a lot of people take the other 40% and they lump it right into that. And so they think very similar in the way that they're driven to think. But we actually have a lot of control over that other 40%, so to speak. About 5% of it has to do with environment. 5% of it has to do with our experiences that we have. And the rest of it is all due to the energy that we put into it, or the work that we do, like making positive affirmations and seeing the world around us. And if you can really focus on that 40%, no matter how negative you are as a person, you can completely change your life around. I mean, you can completely spin it, because when you think positively, you can see opportunities that you never knew existed before, because you were blocking that out perceptually, because your brain only sees what you tell it to see, more or less, which we can talk about that more later. But yeah, it's extremely healthy to do. It's awesome.
That's awareness, right? So if, like, I tell you the color blue, you'll start seeing blue everywhere.
Yeah. Which I was gonna actually do that with you guys. We can pick on Andy if you want to.
Sorry. Yeah,
But,
let's do it on Andy.
Hey, Andy, are you in a blank white room, or is there actually stuff around you right now?
No, it's just a blank white wall behind me.
But do you have stuff in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay, so just close your eyes for a minute.
Okay.
And when you open your eyes, I want you to count how many blue objects you see as quickly as you can.
Okay.
Okay? You ready? And go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, so 5. All right, now close your
Okay.
5. All right, close your eyes again. And then this time when you open your eyes, I want you to count as many red objects as you see.
Oh, dear.
You ready? And go.
1,
As many red.
2, 3, 4.
Awesome, about 4. All right, so when you were looking for red objects, how many blue objects did you see?
None.
Exactly. So you see what you're looking for. That's how it works. And life works the same way. If you look for the positive in your life, you find the positive. If you look for the negative, you look for the negative. And this all comes down to a recent science in terms of past 20 years or so, but it's called epigenetics. And if you have positive thinking, you're healthier, you see things clearer, you sleep better, you see more opportunities, life in general is better. If you think more negatively, you have just the opposite effect. You have depression, you have anxiety, you have, things, everything seems like you're carrying the world on your shoulders. Your health goes downhill.
So
it's all got to do with those chemicals in your brain and how they're bouncing around.
When you came on the podcast and before we went live, and I was like doing my little spiel about, God, I can't do it. You're like, oh, this little asshole. I bet he has a horrible life.
Yeah, I'll charge you $40 an hour. We can start our session.
He's like, why? Okay, great. Now I'm online. I'm going to go live with this negative person. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes about the awareness thing.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I've read a lot of books on it, and that to me was so interesting. Mine is cars. Like if I'm like, oh, I love Jeeps. I'm like, I see Jeeps everywhere. To the point where it bugs me. I'm like, okay, I don't want a Jeep anymore.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because that's actually one of the irrational beliefs. It's number 4, the idea that human misery is invariably externally caused and is forced on us by outside people and events, instead of recognizing that neurosis is largely caused by the view that we take on unfortunate conditions. The negative things that happen in your life have everything to do with your viewpoint. It's an inward to outward thing instead of the outside things happening to you. And it's when you realize that it's your perception that is making your world negative, you can completely flip that around and you start having positive experiences.
So, use me as an example. I feel like I'm late to the game with publishing. I can't get enough words out on paper fast enough, and I go to bed stressed thinking I only got freaking 1,500 words down. I don't think they're that good. My cover artist doesn't speak well, okay, he does speak good English, but he's not getting my cover right, and I feel like he's just going to stop contacting me about it. I've been trying to think positively about it, but every time I sit at my computer, I'm just like.
So do you do anything to reboot or to get energy back or to feel inspired? I mean, whether it's taking a walk or listening to a song or.
I'm with Andy. I work out, but when I'm working out, I'm listening to more marketing podcasts and stuff. And maybe I should stop that because it's driving me insane. My brain is going to explode with information.
Well, I think it would be helpful to have some type of mentor in your life to kind of, I don't know, hit you into reality for what the publishing world looks like. And maybe Andy's that individual since you guys know each other so well. And Andy, you can back me up on this, but even with writing, your first book is not going to be perfect. You're going to find mistakes in it or with the cover or inside the book 18 months after you published it, and you're still going to be wanting to tweak it, and it's going to drive you mad. Really, it's getting it done and getting it out there and feeling accomplished, and then making the next one better, and getting that one done and getting it out there and making the next one better. And one of the best things in terms of just marketing it is having a backlist for people to fall to, because once they read your one book, if you have nothing left for, nothing else to read for 12 months to 2 years, they're going to forget about you because the market is so saturated with books coming out all the time. So it's saying, all right, I'm going to get this book as best as I can right now, and I'm going to make the next one better. Because I'm sure already you've learned from this experience how you can make the next one better.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Praise the Lord. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes. And, I'm sure I'll make, and that's true. Andy is like a mentor to me. I'm going to start calling you Dad. I'm going to start calling you Dad, Andy. Papa Andy. But I feel sorry for Andy because every morning he probably has like an email from me. And it's just like, hey, man, blah, 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 blah. Help. I don't know.
It's actually good because it refreshes my memory on things that I have done or things that I'm going to have to do, when I start self-publishing again. So it's great.
Well, I'll Joshua.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna cut you off, Stevie, because we're getting away from the topic, which is 12 irrational beliefs. I'm just going to read them out the one at a time to sort of give it. These are all the irrational beliefs. 1, it is necessary for an adult to be loved and approved by virtually every significant other person.
I'll tell you that.
2,
I want to give you a tip after each one of those. I'll tell you that's one of the primary causes that we have infidelity in this country.
Yep.
A lot of people struggle with
and
that.
Also, it's like, oh my God, someone doesn't like me. What do I do? My wife's like that a lot. She's not in the house, so I can say that.
I'm guessing she doesn't watch the podcast.
She does not.
Okay, good.
But yeah, that's a huge
all right.
one.
Number 2.
Tons of people suffer from that one.
Yeah, definitely. Number 2, we should be thoroughly competent, adequate, and achieving in all possible respects in order to consider ourselves worthwhile.
Yep. Instead of realizing that we're all imperfect humans, we can't all be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
And that's a good one for you, Stevie, because you're never gonna be the best writer in the world, the best marketer, the best cover designer. You're gonna be good at one thing. You're gonna be great at one thing. You're gonna be good at some things. Who knows? Just be the best you can be. Boom.
Damn. You know what? I'm already feeling much more refreshed now. And I'm not joking. I'm a joking person, but I'm actually serious. Like, I can breathe better now. So, and I'm glad y'all are doing the layman's terms of these too, because I'm just like, what?
Yeah, some of them are pretty dense if you take the original manuscript.
Yeah. I found a place that sort of shrink them down to something simple. All right, number 3, certain people are bad, wicked, or villainous, and they should be severely blamed and punished.
Yep. Instead of recognizing that most of the time people are just ignorant and they don't know any better and they're doing the best with what they have.
Joshua, I thought you were like nodding your head like, yes, that's true. They should be punished.
No, it's bad behaviors, not rotten individuals. Their poor behaviors don't make them bad people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's actually one of the best parts about having this villain, panel or discussion is that you can really get into the different mindsets behind people who are considered villains. You've got gang wars, but it's just guys being driven by testosterone and tense situations and racial tensions and all these things. It's like it's, if you break it down to the human element, it's really just a lot of misunderstandings. There are some people who are just, because of their psychology or their neurology or their traumas in the past, they've been warped and twisted, and they are not evil, but they've got this evil bent to them. But for the most part, 99.99% of the world is just people.
Ignorant bastards. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4. It is awful and catastrophic when things are not the way we'd like.
That should go for me. That's 1. All right, Joshua, I'll send you a PayPal. I'll send you $40 through PayPal if you help me with this one.
Hey, I'm the one saying these things, Stevie. I get the $40.
Yeah, I'm trying to jump around because yours are in a different order than mine are, actually.
Sorry about that.
No problem. But this is where you essentially rationally look at what you could change or how you can make it better. And if you can't, you just lump it into as part of your existence, say, okay, it's just a bad deal. Like, we could never recognize good if we didn't have bad. It's essentially, you have to go through the storm to have the rainbow, and you would never appreciate those good times if you didn't go through bad times. So it's okay if things go horrible once in a while, because that allows you to value other instances in your life.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay if things are shitty, because it's good and bad. But it's interesting. This one is actually almost the opposite, or oppositional to number 5, which is human unhappiness is externally caused and people have little or no ability to control their sorrows and disturbances. So we just said, sometimes it's beyond your hands. And yet other times you have to realize, okay, I'm the one who's feeling shitty. I'm seeing this with the wrong perspective, or I'm reacting poorly to a situation. It's my fault.
Yep, and that's the one that we were talking about before, that we oftentimes cause our own neurosis. We make ourselves go mad type of thing and see everything as being bad and happening to us. You know, my husband doesn't line the dishes up in the dishwasher correctly, or my boss is a jerk, or this or this or this, instead of taking a better approach and saying, okay, what can I do to make the situation better? What do I actually have control over?
Yeah.
We after like we're done with this podcast, we're gonna wrap it up and sell this course for $99. So.
That's awesome. All right.
I like that one. That one also pertained to me. So.
Yeah, this is one that I know 90% of authors are gonna worry about. Something is or may be dangerous or fearsome, like getting terrible reviews about our books. We should be terribly concerned about it and should keep dwelling on the possibility of its occurring.
Yep. Instead of just recognizing that it's better just to face it and decide it's not dangerous. And if it is dangerous, then just accept it for what it is. Again, it's one of those bad things that just happens in order for you to appreciate the good. But it's just recognizing that, what is my fear really doing for me, type of thing. And that's where this one really comes from, is that a lot of us have this, internal fear that kind of builds up, and it prevents us from not doing things because what might happen in the future, when that fear itself isn't even real. It's our own imagination running wild, instead of just moving forward and saying, okay, we'll see what happens.
We actually learned that in part of our classes when we were talking about entrepreneurship. That was a huge thing, a subject that we talked about, is you can't be afraid to go out and try things. And then that would stem to risk versus reward and stuff like that. But, I just got to do this from the business side of things, Real quick, I know Andy's muted. Are you wearing a Blue Eyes White Dragon shirt?
Am I?
Yeah.
It's a dragon around a Celtic cross. I don't know what it's.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing Blue Eyes. I thought we had a Yu-Gi-Oh fan here. Okay.
No.
All right. Okay, we could continue.
Okay, so this is another really good one. It's easier to avoid than face certain life difficulties and responsibilities.
Yeah, the easy way out is usually harder in the long run. That's all that one is, which we hear about all the time. Don't procrastinate. Just get it done, type of thing.
Yep, exactly. All right, number 8. We should be dependent on others, and we need someone stronger than us to rely on.
Yeah, we hear this one all the time, especially in dependent relationships, which we see happening more and more often, I think, in modern society too. But a lot of it comes down to, it's that, once I find the right guy or once I find the right gal, my life will finally go in the right direction, type of thing. Ellis also talked a little bit about religion in this, about how we need an overseeing power in order to be good too. But I usually use this especially in therapeutic situations, and how it applies to how you're seeking the perfect situation or the perfect person in order to be strong enough, instead of realizing that you actually carry everything that you need within yourself.
Yeah, or like the people say, you can't be 50% of a relationship. You've got to be 100% of a person to be, a successful, strong, not codependent, but, to have a successful relationship. You have to be a complete 100% of a person.
Yes, absolutely. Andy could teach these.
Because I don't have any formal training, so it's just me sort of, talking. All right, number 9. Oh, did you have something to say, Stevie?
No, you can continue. I forgot. I was going to bring up a book, but I forgot. Forgot the author, so I'm going to look it up real quick.
All right, number 9. Our past history is an all-important determiner of our present behavior. And because something strongly affected your life in the past, it should indefinitely have a similar effect.
Yeah, I bet you could probably talk to almost anybody who's got this issue for themselves, where they have been labeled in some way or called something or had some experience in their childhood or their adolescence that has forever defined them. Because of the situation, I'm this way. Because I was told I couldn't do this, I'm not allowed to do that. Because I was abused here, I now act this way. Where people, because they've been affected by something, it definitely affects their life, instead of realizing, okay, what can I learn from that experience and move on and let that be part of a story, but not define me.
Yeah, and it's often a very subconscious thing, is that, you know, people have been affected by things in their past and they've changed themselves or they've developed to be who they are because of it. And it's not something that they realize,
Mhm.
but then when they're confronted with it, they have a hard time letting go. Like, I mean, that's one of the defining themes of my Queen of Thieves series, is that this little girl, she goes through all of these horrible things, and so she becomes this person.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, it's never consciously said, well, because I was sold by my father, I'm now going to kill people. You know, it's these little tiny things that she, and it's super subconscious, but it's something that I was very aware of as I was writing it, is, okay, everything in her past has affected her. And that's the way with all of us. We all have something in our past that defines who we are now. But by examining things, by being critical with, okay, now why did I just react to someone saying this to me this way? Examining everything that we do, the way we think, our instincts, helps us to confront these things and then move on.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that for a whole nother hour, about neuroscience, because that's where a lot of my background has come from in terms of education, is in neuroscience, and especially in child development, why we become the way that we are. But a lot of those things, which I think is important for people to know, can be rewritten. You can rewrite those definitive things of your personality and those negative traits that you carry if you put the effort to doing it. It's just the first step is recognizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number 10. We should become quite upset over other people's problems and disturbances. My wife does this one all the time. Her sister's having a bad day, and it's like, oh my God.
I got to figure out which one you're reading here.
We should be affected by other people's problems. You know, other people around us, they have problems. And in a way, you know, we've got to empathize with them. We've got to do what we can. But then there does come a point where it's just, I've got so many problems of my own to deal with. I shouldn't be shouldering your burden as well. That's something a lot of people need to realize, is that they can only shoulder their burden and a select few people's before it just becomes overwhelming.
Yep. I think the one that I am seeing that's probably the closest to that for the rewritten version that you have is where we have to have certain and perfect control over everything. Is that what it's talking about?
I think that one was one of the ones up above.
Yeah, there's two perfection ones. There's ones where you have to be perfect, and then there's ones where you have to control everything else and make it perfect. And
no, that's number 11. There is a right, precise, and perfect solution to problems, and it is catastrophic if this perfect solution isn't found.
Yeah, instead of realizing that life is about improbability and chance, and you can still enjoy life in that level of probability.
Life is a D&D game controlled by dice that we can't see.
So true.
All right, and so I guess number 12, you can give people, including yourself, a rating as a human, and that your worth depends upon the goodness of your performance.
Oh, that one is definitely reworded from the one that I know,
Yeah.
which is fine. But yeah, that definitely fits. Where it's understanding that you actually have control over the world around you and over your own emotions and how you interact with people. It's funny because we've seen this argument actually for the past 2,000 years, even in the writings of Socrates and Aristotle, about whether or not people can control themselves in the way they feel and the way that they think and what they believe, and they do. They have control over that, but oftentimes we pretend like we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, well, I think the emphasis of this point was that people are, and it's not that you are good because you're better than me, or you're better than me because you are some degree of good. You're better at being good, or whatever. You know, it's like there's no such thing as a rating for humans, despite what that one app, I can't remember what the app is, but you know, there's no way to rate humans. It's just everybody struggling to do their best, and sometimes. Yeah. I'm succeeding amazingly. I'm shooting for the stars, and then other times I'm just like plummeting. It's not about, you know, being better than the guy next to you. Actually, that was one of my favorite quotes from the Kingsman movie. I can't remember. I'm going to look for it now.
I love that movie.
Yeah, me too.
I have not seen it.
Oh, let me give away the ending.
It's Ernest Hemingway. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self.
Oh, that is nice.
God, that really reminds me of a quote that I like. If a man rules over himself, he is truly a king.
Yeah. There's a lot of like verses in Proverbs, and I know James. There's a lot of them about having control over yourself about being, like not just instinctively acting or running your mouth or getting angry instinctively, but analyzing your reactions and taking control of yourself. That's when you are a king or a emperor or noble. That's what the real secret is. Isn't to try to be better than anybody else around you. I mean, I'm obviously going to try to write more words than Joshua tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's all about being the best you can be, being better than you were yesterday. In the end, that's all that matters.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say, even with these 12 irrational beliefs, like not all of them apply to everybody. In fact, you'll probably find that certain ones apply to you at different stages in your life, and you kind of work your way through them depending on what your circumstances are and what's going on around you. So when you read through them, you may find like, oh yeah, that doesn't fit at all. That doesn't even make any sense to me. But there's other ones that probably cut pretty deep. And it's sitting back and being like, okay, I really need to reevaluate this and see how I can change this. But again, what Ellis was looking at is when you identify the ones that cut deep and you work significantly on trying to change that and change your thinking process around it, you live a happier life. You genuinely feel better about your life and better about the experiences that you're having.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I love this topic, because it was all about that self-awareness, self-actualization.
Mm-hmm. Self-efficacy.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. That's good. Have we hit all? Did we hit
that was all 12 points. Yeah.
Yep, that's all 12 of them. Yep.
Well, I was going to ask you if you'd actually read anything by Napoleon Hill. Oh my God, the Texan's coming out of me. Hail! Napoleon Hill!
I have not.
I was actually going to say, Joshua, the title of Anarfel sounds like a Texan guy saying NFL.
NFL. That's wonderful.
NFL.
Yeah. We're going to watch the Anarfel games.
I feel so ignorant sometimes, and I'm sure that sometimes you beat yourself up as well, Andy. But I named my first trilogy, and they all have really complicated names. And then Anarfel is complicated, and the sequel to Anarfel is complicated. After this, all my books are going to have easy names. Like this was before I understood the power of like fire and ice. Like it's like now it's like I need to get rid of all the complications so people can recognize what my books are. Like the reason that Anarfel became The Blood of Dragons is because I needed an easy to remember series name because the name of the book was so damn hard. People couldn't remember it. They couldn't spell it. They didn't know how to find it.
So I actually did something right then by calling my series the Dark Assassin series.
Yes.
Whoa. Yes.
Remember.
I'll be honest. I can't even pronounce Andy's novel or your series name, Andy. I always got to go find something where you say it so I can understand how to say it. It's great books. They should be read by everybody. It's like I can't ever remember even how to pronounce it. I have to go to Amazon to be able to spell it so I can share it with people.
For a while, I thought it was Italian, so I was saying the Bucciolari series. And I was, when I first met Andy through email, I was like, crap, I'm gonna have to get on air and promote his book. And I was like, is it Bucciolari or Bucciolari?
Yeah. See, that's good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book and just let him talk about it?
Yeah. It's like, Andy, go ahead and plug your book.
Yeah, I definitely learned my lesson. I mean, the Queen of Thieves is incredibly easy to remember. So just
and Child of the Night Guild,
So you did that on purpose?
No, the Queen of Thieves just had such a nice ring to it.
I got you. Mine was I listened to a marketing podcast and they were actually discussing this topic, and I know this is really, really salesman-y and way away from the craft, but they said, why not make a subtitle with a keyword in it? And I was like, I'm going to do that. I mean, so the Dark Assassin, because that's exactly what he is. He's an assassin who deals with this dark parasite that's inside of him.
Yeah, so, that's why The Blood of Dragons is the way that it is, too. It's for that exact same reason. Yep, I heard a similar podcast.
We are some smart cookies up in here. So 8:15. We have 15 minutes. Should we do the
Let's do the word of the day. We'll do the word of the day real fast.
Okay.
I've got a great word. Do you have one, Stevie, or no?
I do. No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all you.
The word of the day is craven.
Oh, man.
Contemptibly lacking in courage. Cowardly.
Yes. That is an amazing one. God, that gave me chills. I'm not being sarcastic. I actually really like that word.
It is a great word.
Isn't that from Game of Thrones? Don't they have a craven?
I think it's mentioned in there a lot. It's a great word to say coward or cowardly.
It's got Raven right in it, so you're just like, oh man, that's such a good word.
Yeah.
That's how I see things, you know. My dog is like looking at me like I'm like wiggling in my chair. He's just like, what are you doing?
He's like, really, Stevie? We're doing this again?
Yeah. So
let's on to the reading. Now, Joshua, you've got 3 parts for us to read. You direct us.
All right.
Hold
Who has
on.
the prettier voice? Well, Simon is going to have a pretty small role. So if the narrator wants to be Simon, that would probably work out pretty well.
Okay.
Drast and Tyrion are the 2 brothers that are found in the book. We're going to be reading from Anarfell, The Blood of Dragons, the first book. This scene is coming out of chapter 3. Drast is coming to collect Tyrion after his expedition into the Shadefells, where he went to go kill a dragon and bring it back for a blood ritual with their father. And so they each have their armies with them, and Drast is finally finding an opportunity to speak with Tyrion alone before Simon, the son of the Archon, who is in charge of the city, interrupts them. I'm thinking, who wants to do the narrator and do Simon? He's kind of a Weasley guy. How do you feel, Stevie? You're the gnome.
I think you could do that one really well.
Are you saying me?
Yeah.
You snake.
No, because like you pulled up the pixie voice so well, so I feel like you have those higher pitched voices a little bit better than me.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Absolutely, it was intended as one.
He has a fairy voice. Okay, so I'm Tyrion.
No, you'll be Simon and the narrator.
Okay.
Okay, so you'd be Simon and the narrator. I'll pick up Drast because Tyrion is kind of a grunt. He likes to groan a lot, and I'm sure Andy does really well with that, based on our D&D experience.
Do they have accents?
They do have accents. Wait, and you can play that however you want. You know.
Oh yeah. In your head, what do you hear?
It's more of a almost like an English Scottish breakdown. Yeah.
And Simon is Weasley, you said, with a high pitched voice.
He's more Weasley in the sneaky way, not necessarily high pitched. He's just kind of a worm, man. He's just.
I got it. He's a Malfoy.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good way of looking at it.
I forgot. Am I Tyrion or Drast?
You'll be Tyrion, and I'll play Drast.
Okay.
I apologize if I get words wrong. So.
That's okay. So I'll start off since I'll be Tyrion, and I'll let you read the. Are we just ready to go?
Yep.
I'll let you do it. All right. Tyrion.
Drast lifted his hand to clasp Tyrion's when he approached. Drast pulled him close. He wrapped an arm around the man's shoulder into an awkward embrace. Neither of them were much for any kind of display of affection, and Tyrion less so. The large man self-consciously stepped away from him.
Is that me?
No, that's me.
Okay.
I should say something dramatic, but no words come to mind.
Drast noticed his brother's deeper tone.
You've changed.
He frowned. What he said was not what he meant. Tyrion grumbled.
No man goes into the shade and expects to stay the same. How's father? It's been a week since I saw him in Clucas.
Drast paused. He had not traveled within the shadow plane of Clucas for some time. Although he had mastered walking through the thin fabric of space between this world and the next, mostly Stuia did not use this skill often, especially within the perimeters of the city. It left the physical body too vulnerable. The Stuia normally used Clucas for communication with each other over a long distance.
Father is fine,
Drast answered.
He has not said much about you until recent weeks, but that is not unusual. He rarely speaks to me.
And Isolde?
Drast raised an eyebrow at the mention of Tyrion's betrothed. Of course, Tyrion would want to know about her well-being, but his brother had to know their father was not any keener about Tyrion having been smitten now than when he had left for the shade.
Surely you've spoken with her within Clucas.
He shook his head.
For a month or so we did. It became too much to risk the further into the shade we traveled. It's the same reason you and I did not speak often.
Drast shrugged. His dismissal from Tyrion and Clucas was expected and hardly considered a second time. Drast imagined Tyrion had been firmer in quieting Isolde from contacting him in the shadow plane.
She still waits for you if that's what if that's what you need to hear. I've not spoken with her much. I cannot say I have much reason for it.
She is a good woman. For her to wait for me after all this time,
He paused.
I cannot help but be bound to her.
Is that all it takes? Waiting.
Drast raised an eyebrow.
Because I'm pretty sure you're going to find a herd of women waiting at the gates of Lehrheim.
Tyrion shrugged, which Drast took as satisfaction with the response. With his brother, however, it was hard to tell. Still, he hoped Tyrion would finally get rid of the naive, whiny woman. Drast glanced over Tyrion's shoulder to take in the rolling cart carrying the three-headed serpent. The fabric had been hooked again, keeping the beast hidden from sight. He could only imagine the reaction from Stuia within the city if the monster remained concealed. Wallston was counting the men and resetting the ranks for a march back to Larheim. No one within earshot. No one within earshot. This might be the only time for conversation before seeing their father. Drast eyed his brother in silence. Tyrion stood vigilant and stone-faced, scanning the world around them. Drast suddenly felt inferior to his younger brother. While he had been forced to perform play servant to his father's whims in Lehrheim, Tyrion had become a warlord in the shade. Drast no more than opened his mouth when he caught sight of Sir Simon speeding towards them, his eyes widening with each step. "What is it for?" Simon said, breaking up the reunion. He balanced his spear at his side, his other hand pulling at his thin mustache.
What is what for?
Tyrion's words were quick, as though he had been expecting the question to come. His steady green gaze locked into the Archon's sun. Drast recognized a film of coldness set in his brother's face. Masking a grin, he reflected a similar position and squared off to face Simon. "Sir Tyrion, we don't have time for games."
True.
A few beats passed while Simon awaited more, but Tyrion made no move to speak. Finally, Simon spoke. "Do you know who I am?" Tyrion stepped forward. He pulled back his shoulders, showing off the breadth of his muscle.
I don't much care.
Drast nearly stepped back at the frankness of his brother. A blanket no or yes would have sufficed. Drast could not conceal his surprise when Tyrion took another step forward, casting a shadow over Simon with his height. The Archon's sun barely reached Tyrion's chest. His brother had never been any good with faces, and a year away guaranteed he saw the small man as just another soldier, an impudent soldier who need to be in his place, who need to be put in his place. Drast knew he should intervene. He should make Tyrion aware Simon was the Archon's son, but then again, it could be interesting to see where this would go. Simon cocked his chin and blinked. Drast scowled. He could not believe Tyrion had gotten the man too close his eyes only by stepping forward and puffing his chest. "Hold." Was that me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you.
Tyrion interrupted Simon.
Go find your place in the ranks before I pick you up and put you there myself. I have traveled to the shade and back and don't have the patience to deal with boys who don't recognize their betters.
Drast struggled to withhold a smile. His brother never let his emotions show. He bolstered Tyrion's suspicions.
I saw you skulking about. Why did you wait so long to approach?
Tyrion snorted at the comment, not giving Simon time to respond.
Skulking, eh? My skulk. Weasel skulk. Rats skulk. It's time you skulked back to where you came from, and hope I don't take a mind to step on you.
Drast felt a grin slip onto his face. Tyrion paid no attention to him, focused on Simon, and Simon's eyes stayed locked on his brother. He never got the chance to play up on Tyrion. His brother was usually too in control to fall for his manipulations. Stoned to the head or not, it was a good day. Simon sneered. "You are that much of a fool to insult me, Sir Tyrion. When we return to Lehrheim, you will learn what it means to speak ill towards your betters." The man snorted before turning away from them and marching back across the sands. Tyrion turned his head with a jolt, jaw opening slightly. Drast barked a laugh.
He is Simon Kluk, the Archon's son. He was sent to oversee your return.
I see.
Any light in Tyrion's eyes deadened. He rarely got angry. Usually he seemed bored, but Drast knew his brother had retreated into his head. Somewhere in there, the wheels were turning, and he would not get him back for some time. Drast watched Simon stalk among the soldiers, casting angry looks towards Tyrion. Still chuckling, Drast cast his eyes between the Archon's son and Tyrion, but his smile slipped when he saw Walston meet with Simon, and the two put their heads together before walking on. He was not sure what Walston was doing, but he did not like it. Could he trust him? He turned his attention back to his brother.
What's the dragon for, Tyrion?
Tyrion spoke at a half whisper.
Father will use it to give us the power to rule over Leirhain. We will kill Archon Kluk and the rest of the royal bloodline. Knowing Father, he has other plans.
Doesn't he always?
Drast muttered.
But I suppose we need to get the dragon back to our estate first, and before Simon returns to his royal father, of course.
Tyrion nodded. Drast grinned.
We can prevent that little mayhap right now.
He quickly unshouldered his bow, knocked an arrow briefly touched with
Kosovo.
Okay.
Kosovo.
Drew and fired. The arrow flew straight up into the air. In a blink, he had returned his bow to his shoulder. His brother's eyes bulged.
What are you doing?
Disposing of a problem.
Drast shrugged.
A stray arrow happened to slay the Archon's son. Freak accident is all. No way to say where it came from.
You cannot simply kill him. I'm not saying he should not die, but we need a plan first.
Tyrion hissed.
Plausible deniability.
Cries erupted in the distance, soldiers scrambling to and fro. Drast showed his teeth.
Too late. Problem solved.
Nice.
Joshua, does something terrible happen to Isolde? I think I remember that from the book.
It does. There is something terrible that happens to Isolde.
I remember thinking, that is terrible. Like, of all the terrible things that I have inflicted on my characters or read in books, that was one of the most terrible. So you definitely set the bar high or low, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Is this book on... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is this book on Audible?
This book is not. I only have one of my books on Audible, and that's Melkorka, which I recently got finished up. And honestly, getting future books done on Audible are going to be determined on how well that book sells. It's got to meet its quota so that we can then afford to do the next one.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That was really, like, I was forgetting that I was reading, and I was about to start reading into y'all's parts. So
I feel bad. I should have totally taken the narrator piece of it. I was just thinking, I was like, oh, these have a lot of probably complex words. I probably should have taken that piece over so you don't have to read that. But you did well.
Thank you. It seems so Norse to me. Like, a lot of it probably has Norse mythology behind it, I'm guessing.
Actually, all of my series for Thrice Nine Legends is based off Slavic mythology. So it's all Slavic words, Middle Eastern, Persian. It's got all that flavor to it, but it's primarily Slavic. Now, Blood and Bile, that's the first book in the Legacy series, is completely based off Norse mythology.
Yeah.
And that's a different world, it's a different setting, and it is 100 times darker than anything in the Thrice Nine Legends saga.
It's next on my to-read list, or it's either 1 or 2 down the list. So I've got high hopes. I will say that this one was Anarfell, right?
Yes, this is Anarfell.
Yeah, the Anarfell.
Anarfell.
Yeah, it totally reminded me of every single story of the Underdark, Menzo Baranzan of the Salvatores. Like the way those two brothers were going back at each other and all the stuff that happens. It's like replace the female drow with male characters, and that was the exact flavor. So if you enjoy that flavor of Salvatore stuff, you'll love this book.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Andy.
That was actually in my review, I think.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun to write, which if you read the very first chapter in that one, part of the piece in here that people probably aren't seeing is Drast spends like the first 3 pages of the book trying to get Simon to blink, because he's so fed up with how wide his eyes are and how he won't blink. So he's completely like frustrated when Tyrion just walks up and puffs his chest and makes the guy blink.
Yeah.
Stuff like that I really enjoy in books. Small things like that. So really, I'm not kidding. I I'm actually really interested in this book, and I definitely am going to put it on my to-do. In fact, I'd actually like a paperback form of it because I love the cover so much.
Well, I will tell you, all my books are actually cheaper on my website, and they're signed than buying them off of Amazon. So people who want to get them, it's better to go get them off my website and get a signed copy because it's going to be cheaper than what you get off Amazon.
It's awesome, man. Go do it, viewers and listeners. Do it now. So, all right. Well, I think that is time for us, right, Andy?
Yep, that is our time. Joshua, you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Sure. Easiest way to find me is just look for Robertson Writes, ROBERTSON WRITES. Whether you're looking for my website, that's the website, robertsonwrites.com. That's also how you find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all those social media platforms. It's the same across all those. And you can find my newsletter and hook up with me easily through my website. So,
dude, this website is bomb.
Thank you. Yeah, I can click on that Thrice 9 Legends over there. You can explore my world. It shows you the magic system, all the gods. You can see the world map. You can find out about the characters, the 9 different races in the world. You can lose yourself for hours on there. You get the mythology. Everything's there, man.
Holy crap. And your Melkorka, am I saying that right?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, that book cover is so cool and green. Okay. Andy knows I love book covers. I love book covers. I'm always asking to see the book cover. So
yeah, I got the 3 of them right here, which I loved getting this. This is the full series in there. So you have the tree.
Oh,
there's the
that's
first
cool.
one. Yeah, the first one was the full tree, and then as it gets frozen, there you go. With the next tree, and then the last one, it's dying. And the whole series of the calendar series follows a slave who is led on by the highborn, and the world tree is in danger, or the ash tree, and they're trying to save it from demons that are spilling up from the netherworld. Anarfell is a giant prelude to that series. So if you read Anarfell, you figure out why everything in these 3 books happen. And then the sequel to Anarfell, that's going to be coming out later this year, called Hey Sheol, comes after the entire series. So
okay.
My books are, again, they can be kind of confusing. You can read this full series and get a great story. You can read this full series and get a great story, or you can read, this one first, the whole series, and then the sequel, and you're gonna get the entire story.
Okay, that makes sense. That's not too bad. You could do a chart on your website. 1, 2,
it is.
3, 4.
If you click on books, you'll see the full chart. Yep, click books on the website, and you'll see all the books in order by the years chronologically that you can read them. All my short stories that are thrown in there also give you additional information. So yeah.
Sweet, I love that.
It's huge.
I'm definitely going to be checking this out. All right, so Andy, do I go ahead and close this out?
Yeah, you close this out, Stevie.
All right, c'est la fin du départ. No, okay. All right, thank you everyone who is watching or listening. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. That helps us out tremendously. Please go to robertsonwrites.com to check more out on the awesome Joshua Robertson. Next week we are having, I believe,
Joshua Robertson's better half.
Yes.
Yeah, Miss Oak, Lillian Oak, right?
That is correct.
And we're going to be discussing empaths, which is a really awesome concept.
We are just getting so deep into the mental side of all of this stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week for another fantastical episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. See you next week.
Bye.